guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you, and today I want to talk a little bit about buying a new knife. So this is primarily for those of you who are looking for something in particular and maybe you're not sure what. This is not so much for the collector or for the enthusiast who knows every new knife that's coming out for 2024 and already knows exactly what you plan to buy. But there are other people who, unlike us, they're just looking for a decent knife. And I will say, if you're in that situation, you are in just an overwhelmingly positive situation, because there are so many great knives that it's incredible how many great options you have for very reasonable price points. Okay, so from one standpoint, you have a real advantage. However, there's another side of this discussion, and that is, you have so many choices that it can be difficult to know what to pick. All right. And so what this is not going to be is like a top 10, best all around use knives or something like that. This is going to be more of a video that will hopefully give you enough data that you can go out as an informed customer and pick something that you'll enjoy, that will do the job you want it to do, and will do it well for many, many years to come. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. And essentially, what I want to do in this video is walk through a series of questions that I suggest you try to answer before you go out and buy your knife. Okay, the other thing that we have to touch on just briefly, this would be a whole nother video and we won't get into a whole long discussion, but whatever knife you buy, you are going to have to sharpen it. And I am going to recommend that you don't get one of those pull-through sharpeners that maybe you already have in your kitchen drawer or something like that. But rather you get some kind of for most people's use, a flat stone sharpener is going to be fine, or a fixed angle sharpener will also do the job, although it may cost a little bit more. There's a Lansky sharpening box with a couple of ceramic rods that's pretty cheap. I mean, back in the day, you could get them for like $15, $20. I'm sure they're not that much more. This WorkSharp field sharpener is a pretty affordable option. It's easy to keep with you. This can also go in your kitchen drawer or whatever. And it has, some angles set that can be of some assistance. It's got a fairly coarse stone and a fine-ish stone, and then a finishing rod. So, I thought I'd throw this in here just because if you really don't have any other knives, and this is the first knife you're going to be buying, this might be something to kind of get you going for your initial sharpening. So you at least have the ability to get an edge back on your knife. Later on, you might want to look at a Spyderco Sharpmaker or an Edge Pro Apex or a Wicked Edge. You may want to look at some of the fixed angle or some of the rod sharpeners from KME or WorkSharp. Anyway, lots and lots of options out there. The other thing you probably want to get right away, maybe even before you own your knife, is a decent strop so that you can keep an okay edge on that knife. Okay, so introductory matters aside, all right, let's think through some of the things we might want to do with our knives. So what are you gonna do with it? Is this just your everyday carry knife? Is it going to be the knife you take camping or, on some outdoor survival canoe trip or hunting trip or something? Is it going to be just a knife that is in your pocket from day to day while you're driving around and taking your kids to hockey practice and, doing the things that you do throughout the day? And the reason I ask that is because, all of those will, inform your purchase. What is it that you're looking for? So something like this little Real Steel Luna might be great if you're looking for something to carry around the office that's pretty small and you just need to cut the apple that you bring in your lunch every day. This is a good option. If you're looking for something to fill a hard use role, something that can really take a beating, you may want to look at something from Cold Steel with a triad lock. If you're looking for something that is what would you say? Something that is, a little plainer, a little more widely available. You might look to for a liner lock with a flipper. These flipper tab liner lock style knives are extremely prolific and are quite good. All right, I would call them more general EDC than exactly hard use. And you probably don't want this particular blade shape. All right. I have various different blade shapes because, as an enthusiast, it's enjoyable for me, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend, for most of you watching, probably a more standard, drop point or clip point is probably a pretty good way to go. A tanto can have its uses as well, especially, I find apart from, skinning or certain outdoor tasks, a tanto is a very utilitarian blade shape. This is a tanto blade. This is in this case, it's a clip point, but you can see the edge here is a more standard edge, the way you're probably used to seeing on a knife. All right, so what are you going to do with this knife? Let's get that out of the way first, and that will help you understand what kind of knife you want to buy, whether it needs to be really hard use, if you're going to be, outdoor survival, doing outdoor survival type of stuff, or it's going to see a lot of really heavy duty wood processing or something like that, then a fixed blade is probably your best bet. All right. This is the VL Vincent Lessard Warlock. Great little knife. This is a custom. Most people are not going to need or want a custom knife. So something from Lion Steel. This is the M2M from Lion Steel. Great little knife, not too big, pretty useful for a very broad general set of tasks, but certainly anything harder use, anything that is going to be a little more demanding or where you could possibly break your knife, you want a fixed blade if you're going to be putting any kind of tension on this area of the blade. So whether that's really, really hard cutting tasks, or you're going to be batoning, smacking this through a piece of wood, or, really hard, any kind of hard use, a fixed blade is going to be your best friend, with something from Cold Steel probably coming in at a close second. So there's the American Lawman. And the American Lawman is a very broad use knife. It can check all the boxes quite well. All right. So hopefully that gives you your first step in sort of the thought process. All right. The second thing that you might want to think about is, how much do you want to spend? And I would say that actually this is a pretty good example of what we're looking at right now. Here we have a CJRB, fairly budget-friendly knife, not too expensive. It's stainless steel. It's AR RPM9 steel. The handle is a stainless steel handle. It's got a button lock, which won't be perfect for everyone, but will serve many people quite well. Okay. Generally, I wouldn't consider a button lock hard use or heavy duty or anything like that, but nonetheless, something from CJRB or Sencut, like this Serene, or this Trexler, even something from Civivi. I've got button lock Elementum here. Right, these are all fairly budget-friendly knives, and you can find a lot of pretty good, useful, effective, budget-friendly knives. If you want to bump that budget up a little bit, or if you need something that's really hard use or will hold an edge like crazy, then you're going to want to move to, sort of a more premium knife. All right, and in that vein, you might be looking at something from Spyderco. Now, you get a Spyderco Tenacious. It's budget-ish, but by the time you get to a Paramilitary 2, you're probably looking at spending $150 to $200. You can buy an American Lawman. You could buy the Code 4. These are all going to be sort of in that next price point, and all highly recommended and very, very useful. Any one of these could easily be, your one knife for, if not your whole life, most of your life type of thing. All right, these are all great. If you need something bigger, this would still fit in this same vein, although it's going to be over $200. The Military 2 from Spyderco. Lots of other knives we could mention here. The higher end of this range, probably getting close to $300. You might look at something from Benchmade. They do have, there should be some knives. Griptilians are probably still less than $200. At least I'd like to think so. But Benchmade loves to push that price point as far as high as they can. All right. But this is my Benchmade Crooked River. It's going to be a little more costly for you. The We Knife XL is what I would think of as more of a high-end knife. All right. So the reason I kind of walked through that very quickly is to show you that for just about, okay, any use model, like whatever plan you have for your knife, whatever you're planning to get into with it, there are knives at a decent price point that you can definitely take advantage of. Okay, so you don't have to count on, breaking the bank. What I would say for most people, in terms of a recommendation for one knife that you're going to buy and use for everything, if you kind of count on spending around $150, that's probably going to get you there, either new or perhaps used. Now, one thing that I would recommend considering is looking for something used. There are a lot of guys out there like me who are knife enthusiasts. We buy knives that it turns out we don't like. We buy knives that we think we'll be interested in, and then we aren't. We buy knives and then realize we need money to buy more knives. And so in all of those cases, you can buy knives that are now used and will be, 20 to 30% less than retail, but still be in new or like new condition that you can now, get a pretty good deal on. Now, the only problem is the used market does present some challenges. So if you're going to go this route, I might recommend getting some help. All right, go over to Canadian Knife and Gear and maybe ask some questions. Get a friend who you kind of know is into knives, who maybe knows a little bit about steel and materials and brand names and stuff to give you some guidance. Or even, and I've done this for lots of different friends. I'll have a friend say, look, Kev, I need a new knife. This is kind of what I'm looking for. And I'll say, look, it's about to be Tuesday. And one of the, so on Canadian Knife and Gear, we have Toonie Tuesday. And so I'll say to them, hold on, let me see what comes up on Toonie Tuesday, and I'll see if there's anything that's suitable for your needs. And then usually, now here's the problem. If you're going to make this offer, it needs to be someone you trust pretty implicitly. Because if you don't have a reputation in the knife community, it can be difficult to carry off used transactions. All right. So I'll do one of two things. Either one, I'll just buy the knife and I'll say, look, you can reimburse me after. Or, if there's someone I'm a little more, that I sort of trust a little more, then I'll say, look, if I find something good, I'll tell you what it is and I'll put you guys in contact and you guys can work out some kind of a deal between the two of you. I tend to prefer that a little bit more. That way it can be shipped directly to them. And, I'm not telling the person who I'm buying the knife from, well, don't ship it to my address you usually use, ship it to some other address. That it can set off some red flags, which are easier not set off at all. But I say all that to say, if you can go used, that can be a really, really good option for you. The other thing that I would recommend doing before you commit to a knife, and this is difficult in the world of Amazon. And let me say a little bit of a sidebar. One of the things that got me to make this video was the fact that I was looking on Amazon, and I had a couple friends ask me recently about buying a knife, and they said I looked on Amazon and there didn't seem to be many good options. So I went and checked out Amazon in Canada, and it is terrible. Because of some of the things that CBSA has been doing, the knife market in Canada has taken a real hit. Lots of big retailers, Canadian Tire, Cabela's, these can usually get stuff. Usually, I say. Even some of the big retailers like Warriors and Wonders and S&R Knives in Toronto have had things confiscated. Okay. But nonetheless, Amazon especially kind of sucks. And two, it's hard to buy a knife online without having it in your hand, without checking it out. And so if at all possible, go to a retailer, handle a bunch of knives, and potentially buy one there Although, okay, there's some things to consider. Not all retailers have great prices. Not all retailers have great warranty. I don't want to make this blanket statement to just, trust any brick and mortar store is good to go. There's certainly a value, and I'm appreciative that we have some brick and mortar stores here in Canada that we can order from. But there are two problems with that. One, you've really got to shop around, make sure the prices are good. And I'm not against at all going into a knife store, checking out a bunch of stuff, getting a sense for what you like, feels good in your hand, and then later buying that same knife or a similar knife used or online or whatever. I know there'll be people watching who won't like that, and I get it. But as a consumer, I put consumers first. All right. I know retailers have a tough job, especially in Canada. But I'm a pretty hard dyed-in-the-wool capitalist, and I feel like, you gotta deliver the very best product for your customer, or you don't need to be in business. So, shop around, get the best thing you can for the very best price. That's my recommendation. Finally, now we're going to get down to what you should look for when you're actually in that store, or when you're online looking at pictures, or when you're watching videos, or whatever the case may be. All right. You're going to want to take a close look at the knife. Let's pick a knife here that doesn't cost a lot of money, but still really does a great job in a lot of these areas. So this is the Sencut Serene. Okay, gorgeous looking knife, aluminum handle scales with this really nice blue anodizing on it. Very snappy action, really, really enjoyable knife. I really like a lot of things about this knife. All right, so if I take a close look, all right, I'm going to look at the blade, and I want to see if the grind is fairly even. So I might look down it this way and see if it looks fairly good. If this edge looks pretty straight and it hasn't been really wonky and warped and twisted from the factory, okay, I'm going to look down it this way. I'm going to close the knife and check the centering. All right, is it sitting pretty close to middle in the handle there? And this one is. Now, centering is not the worst thing, okay? But it's certainly something to pay attention to. I'm going to grab the blade and I'm going to move it around a little bit. I want to see if I get any blade play, and I shouldn't. Okay, if you get blade play, I would pass on that knife. And I know not everyone will agree with me, but I just cannot tolerate any blade play. Sometimes if there's side to side play, that is, if the knife is moving, the blade moves this way, you can tighten this screw, the pivot screw, and that will remove the blade play. Okay, sometimes. You want to check the action. Does the knife open and close properly? All right. Again, this will give you a good idea. Now, the strength of the lock is not kind of the end-all and be-all, and that's because you should treat any folding knife, okay, if this knife folds, then you do not ever trust it with negative pressure on the blade. It's just not a good idea, okay? So you assume, even if it has a lock, that every knife is going to act like a slip joint. So a slip joint is a knife like this where there's no locking mechanism, right? If I push on this, boom, it folds, right? So assume that any folding knife is going to close on your fingers if you put negative pressure on it. So we've talked about the blade, and I'm talking about fit and finish. So I'm going to take a close look at all the little details. I want to see, is there a big space around this button? Do things look clean and well done? Are the scales properly lined up? Are things, do I see, even milling around these screws? I'm making sure that when this was machined, it was done cleanly and carefully, and then that they've done a good job in putting it together. All right, so notice here's just a little thing that you might want to look at. So notice how it's exactly the same distance on both sides. There's the same revealed amount of metal back here. Little things like that, screws are properly sunk. In this case, we've got these flush screws under the clip, which is great. It means it goes in and out of pocket very comfortably. So there are a bunch of little things like that you're going to want to look at. If you're buying a liner lock, must have a liner lock here. If you're looking at a liner lock knife, you want to make sure that it's easy to get your thumb in there to release the lock. Okay, a knife that is really, really difficult to get to is going to get annoying quickly. You want to make sure that it deploys reliably. Okay, if you're having a knife and when you go to flick it, it doesn't open all the time. I think I've got a gas station knife here that I used for a video a while back, and it's spring loaded and it deploys pretty regularly, but there's blade play that I can detect here, both side to side and up and down. The lock barely feels, it just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, right? So this is a good example. And any knife that looks like this, if it's got rainbows and dragons and stuff like that, it's probably a knife to avoid to begin with. Okay. So we're going to check for, fit and finish like we would on any, on any purchase that we're making. We're going to check for safety. We're going to check how grippy is this item, right? So let's use the American Lawman. I'm going to try to grip down really hard. I might even find something I can push on and see what's going to happen when if I've got to do some serious cutting over a long period of time. Is my hand going to fatigue badly? Does it have the option to change grips in case it gets uncomfortable? Can I use it in a reverse grip for pulling? Make sure that the handle is comfortable and it has some traction so that when you're working, especially consider, if you're going to be doing something that could get your knife wet or bloody or whatever, how does the lock feel? Is it accessible? So in this case, we have a crossbar lock. I can move it. I've had crossbar locks where if I try to move it with one finger, it just would lock up. It would kind of twist in the hole and bind on itself. That's a good indication that you're dealing with something that's low quality. All right. Now, not every knife is going to deploy the same. All right. You might want to try a few different things. Some knives will have bearings in the pivot, which will make them very free falling. So see, this knife has bearings. It's very little friction there. This knife has no bearings. It's got washers in the pivot here that the blade is riding on as it moves, and it's not quite as free. Now, in addition, the backlock puts constant pressure on the blade, so it doesn't move as freely as a button lock would, regardless of what kind of bearings it has. Okay, now this is a frame lock, so it functions like a liner lock, but instead you have an actual piece of the frame that pops over into place. This is a titanium frame lock, so it's kind of expensive. So most of you who are new to knives are probably not buying a titanium frame lock. Maybe you will if you kind of get, if you're the kind of person that likes to buy something a little nicer right away. And I know that's definitely a thing. Not everyone starts out with the cheapest thing and works their way up like I tend to do. I usually buy the cheapest thing that I think will work, and then I realize I'm not happy with it, and I buy something nicer, and I may not still be happy with that, so I buy something nicer. And finally, through trial and error, I kind of figure out where the price point is that will get you something that works well. I know not everybody is dumb as me, and so some of you will go right for a higher end thing immediately. All right. What about blade steel? Blade steel is a big deal, and it's not something people are used to noticing. I can tell you, I always liked having a pocket knife. I carried one for many years, but I had no idea what those letters on the blade meant, right? And many, many people don't. So, I'm not going to get into a huge, long discussion, but I will recommend go check out Cedric Canada Gear and Outdoors. If you're not a huge knife enthusiast, that's fine. You'll still get value from his channel. Just go and watch. He has a number of videos that are ranking different kinds of blade steel. Just go watch one of those, and that will give you a good handle on what steels are good, what steels are really bad and to be avoided, and then what steels are kind of in the big mushy middle where there's tons of decent steel that will do the job for you. All right. So that's a long process to think through. I know this has kind of been a long video, but I wanted something that I could share with people that would kind of give them a good sense for what to look for without having to just depend on reviewer recommendations, right? What if you can't find, what if it's a brand new knife and no one's reviewed it yet? Pretty hard to find that in the world today, but nonetheless, or what if it's an old knife, or what if you don't have internet and you're trying to assess whether this is a piece of quality cutlery or if it's garbage. So hopefully those things will help you. And as I say, that one last piece is going to be the steel. There are lots of steels that I like. I'll just mention a couple names just because I know some of you will be too lazy to go watch Cedric and Ada. So I love 14C28N. I love D2. I love 9CR18 MOV. I love OS10A from Cold Steel. I love 154 CM. I love VG10. I love CPM 154. I love S30V and S35VN and S45VN and S90V and S110V. Some of those, by the way, might be a little tougher to sharpen because now we're getting into harder, higher end steels. M390, 20CV. CTS 204, CTS XHP is great. CTS 204P is great. So that's a quick rundown of a bunch of random names. I should have written them all down so you could just get a screenshot, but I apologize for that. Anyway, now that you have a little bit of information and a little bit of a sense for what to look for, shop around. If you can, go and try a few things out. Get to know what you like and what you enjoy, and then make your decision based on that. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.